So there was only a 6% chance of Trump publicly calling out Elon Musk before July on July 5th, so last Thursday at noon. This quickly became 46% chance on Polymarket over here, and then eventually, as we all know, the rest is history, and it became 100% with this insane Twitter feud that we saw between Thursday and Friday. We saw Elon Musk and Trump going back and forth on Twitter. We saw a ton of trades, and they honestly nailed it. These went 100%, 400%, all the way up to 500% in the profit for these one-day expiration put orders on Tesla. Also, between Friday and Thursday alone, only 2 days, there was $353 million worth of bearish flow on Tesla. That number would be absurd for a week, let alone only 2 days. So a lot to talk about in today's video. Make sure to subscribe below and also turn on post notifications. I think it's like only 7% of you that have post notifications on. So if you want to make sure you see each of these weekly videos every Sunday, then make sure to click that below. Regardless, going into this here, we had a lot of back and forth. First of all, Tesla faced a $1.2 billion risk due to the Trump tax bill, according to JP Morgan. So this is obviously one of the main culprits behind Elon's rage towards Trump, if you want to call it that. He brought it to social media, and eventually you can see a lot of put orders hit the tape. And interestingly enough, on some of these orders, look at the spot price of each of these between 313 and 311. If we go over to the chart over here, this is not a random level that they bought these puts. This is exactly at this trend line over here, the one I've been talking about for months now on Tesla. If we go scroll out to the daily, this is the key uptrend that it's held all the way since April of 2024, over a year ago. We fell below it over here when we had that major correction in the market because of tariffs earlier this year. And then Tesla finally reclaimed it over here in May. This is the first breach of this level on not only the daily, but also the weekly chart, which means there's now a bearish bias in Tesla as long as it stays under. So if you're bullish, you want to see this level reclaim, and that is around 311, 312 right now. Again, interesting that they chose that time to add those puts because, of course, if you break such a critical trend line like this one, there's a lot of flush risk under, and a flush we did indeed see. I just flushed all the way down to 272 at its low. So they made out like bandits. They made a ton of money on this. Of course, there wasn't as much premium on it, but it was just consistent flow throughout the entire day. This is only a small portion of the amount of puts that we saw, and also very aggressive, of course, with the strikes that they chose. For example, 280 over here, 235 even for the 613 expiration. So a lot of bearish activity in terms of those. These, of course, went up 500% at their high. So you can see from over here, and they hit their high. And once this bombshell came out over here where he called out Trump and said he's in the Epstein files. Have a nice day, Donald Trump. So over here, this tweet actually you cannot find anymore on Twitter as of Saturday. So interestingly enough, deleted that, but the damage is already done. This tweet had millions upon millions of impressions. Of course, people have screenshots of it. Twitterflow, you could see here, posted it. So it's already out there. Trump has to deal with that now. And as you can see, just a lot of carnage across the board. However, one thing I want to mention, during this entire fiasco between Thursday and Friday, the S&P 500 remained very robust. It's actually incredibly impressive. We only saw a slight drawdown over here on Thursday when all this was happening, and it held up above both its own downtrend that it broke out of back on Monday of last week, and then also actually held its previous supply zone, now demand zone, this red box over here. So we have a cleared now demand zone because this was rejected before active supply numerous times. You can see like 6 rejections on the 15-minute over here. And then we finally broke out above, held it as support, came down during that time when there was that risk between the current administration fighting Elon, and then we had a huge bounce the following day. And so far, it's like nothing happened. So as long as both of these can hold, this is something that can continue to grind higher in the near term. And honestly, we're very close to my personal target I've had for the past couple weeks, shared in the past couple videos, the 602.70 level. So this is something I plan to see as soon as this week. If we can get above 602.70, this is something that can continue to grind higher through all-time high into the summer months, such as June, July, etc. So do like it as long as you can get above this level. In the near term, like I said, though, this is something that's remained very strong, very impressive, honestly, because when you have the current administration arguing against the richest guy in the world, when the richest guy in the world has the company that's one of the largest components of the S&P 500, then of course you'd expect it to fall a lot more. In this case, it didn't. The rest of the market was relatively calm, and it's done very well ever since. So definitely like to see that. We also saw a decent amount of dark pool activity between Thursday and Friday on the S&P 500. If we go over here to historical flow between both days, we can see here 3 decent sized orders. This one over here, 717 million plus another 717 million just 8 minutes before. Both of these were at the same level, 597.64. And of course, we did close above that based on this closing price over here. And interestingly enough, if we mark this level on the chart, 597.64, we could see it actually acted as a nice support. We never had a close on the 15-minute at least below this level, as you can see over here. So support, 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 support 3 times on the 15-minute chart. You even can consider it 4 on the 15-minute with this final candle to bounce higher off of it. So this level definitely has remained as support. Looks like some buying up here in terms of the dark pool. This is over $1.4 billion worth of premium. So a lot behind that. And then a little bit earlier on in the week over here, we saw 415 million. So decent amount in singular dark pool prints. Remember, these are not signature dark pool prints. Those are 24 hours delayed. These are singular, which means they come in within 20 seconds of the order being executed. So you see it here within 20 seconds on Cheddar Flow. That's as quick as it can go in terms of dark pool exchanges. So definitely mark this level on your chart, because if it holds, this is something that either you can base risk off of for trade setups, or something you can even see a potential setup off of, kind of like what we saw on Friday here when it acted as support numerous times. So as it relates to SPY flow between both of those days, there wasn't a clear-cut sign of any direction, at least, likely because of everything happening in the market during that time period. We did, however, see a couple far out the money call leaps, such as this 650 strike for 2.1 million in premium, 7.2 million in premium, even 14.5 million in premium. So over $20 million worth of premium going into these 650 strike. These are actually very unusual orders. Not only are they highlighted gold here on Cheddar Flow, it's pretty rare to see far out the money strikes for leaps with such a large amount of premium on SPY. So this is definitely something you want to reference. This is for the March expiration. I'm over here, and they bought these at $599.61. So just a tad above the closing price on Friday. So they're looking for something like a continuous grind up higher in the market. This is about the only directional flow that we saw between both of those days. The rest of it was just back and forth, put buys and call buys as well. So really, this is the main focus that I have from last week. We'll check the open interest come Monday to see if they are continuing to hold. I will continue to check this open interest as time goes on, because again, this is very interesting to see these 3 orders definitely directionally bullish, but as it relates to the near term, it's not really that helpful just because of the expiration that they chose in this case. So that's the current SPY flow. Going over to Tesla flow, because of course everything was very hectic between Thursday and Friday last week. There's actually a similarity between the directional aspect of it. It was all short-dated expiration, at least where the premium was going into, kind of like what I showed you guys from over here when Cheddar Flow posted the orders, these 280 strike, 310 strike, etc. Orders. There's a lot of short-dated, 0-day expiration, 1-day expiration that they chose in this case, just because it was so volatile in the near term. We saw huge price swings. I think it was down like 16% over here at one point on Thursday, just because of all this. So that's over $100 billion worth of market cap, all because of 2 guys arguing on Twitter. That's absurd if you think about it, that Twitter has that much weight behind it, that you can just post things on there and it will reflect over $100 billion worth of market value lost on an equity in the market. Just absurd what times we're living in right now. But as it relates to flow, again, a lot of back and forth. I really didn't see much, to be honest, that shows like a directional aspect for the longer term. There were some calls that came in near the end of day on Friday, but realistically, there's just so many orders in both directions. This isn't something that I find that helpful, and that's fine. You're not going to see directional flow on a name every single day. You're not going to see a clear-cut answer to where the market or whatever specific equity you're looking at might go. Just got to keep looking at it from a day-to-day basis. And whenever you see those clear setups, kind of like what we saw with those put orders intraday for the 0-day expiration or 1-day expiration, then that's some time where you can look a little bit further into the technicals. If it fits your criteria, then you pounce on it. This doesn't fit my criteria, so I'm going to hold off on it. As for the technicals, still looking for that 312-ish level, like I mentioned earlier in this video. If it can reclaim that and we see something like a lot more call flow coming in, similar to what we saw with the put flow starting to come in once it broke below, that's something that I'd look to add longs on. But as long as it stays under, that's not something that I'm interested in trading. I'll let the market take care of itself in the near term. So that's the plan for Tesla. The last thing I do want to mention, though, Elon did say something during this Twitter fiasco that I want to mention, and I also want to hear some of your takes on it in the comments below. I find it very interesting that he said, "Without me, Trump would have lost the election. It is time to create a new political party in America that actually represents the 80% in the middle." Personally, my opinion is this is actually a great take. I like that he said this in this case because, first of all, Obviously, he helped a lot with the funding. He helped with the campaign. He was Trump's essentially right-hand man during this entire process. But then also, he bought X. There's a very clear correlation between the amount of freedom of speech and the opinions that are on X. Trump coming back on X from Truth Social to post. Very clear that Aided in Trump winning the election in November. Of course, it's unknown to the extent of which it did. I think it's a very high amount that it did help with. And then he also mentioned that it's time to create that political party that actually represents the 80% in the middle. So two things with this. What do you think about his claim about without me, Trump would have lost the election? Because again, I think that's actually very valid. If he did not help in all of those avenues, this is something that it would have been at least a lot closer in that regard. But then also over here, what do you think about a new political party in America that actually represents the 80%? I think that'd be great. I think it's very polarizing right now, especially with social media that's out there. There's just extremes on either end, and that's kind of what you hear as the loudest. But the typical person, probably a lot of people that watch these videos, is just more neutral in a sense. We want to see someone that actually is going to do what they say. In this case, and it's not extreme policies. We just want it to be balanced overall. I think this is a great idea. Of course, a lot of people have tried to do this, and it's very difficult with the amount of funding the two-party system has right now. But let me know in the comments below what you think about this. Regardless, a lot to look forward to this week ahead. Mainly going to be focused on the SP 500 over here, as long as it can hold above some of these key levels that I mentioned earlier in the video. Otherwise, as always, appreciate you guys watching this video. I'll see you next time.